Okay, so 5 minutes has passed, and I'm waiting for the recording to happen, and it's on. There you go. So we are officially starting today's meeting. Hello, everyone. Again, my name is Ferdinando Castro Gonzalez. I have been already speaking for maybe 20 minutes, so you already know about me. But we also have officers here. We have Yusha and Orlando. We three of us are supposed to make sure that all communication goes accordingly, respectfully, and of course, very philosophically. We have our advisor also here, fashionably late. No, he actually arrived 1 minute on time, but he's here also to make sure that we stay on topic because that's what he does. Nothing else. Nothing else. Absolutely nothing else. Beyond that, he doesn't do anything. Um, all right. So, oh, there you go. Look at that. Efrain already knows the rules, but I will explain them to you if you're new because I know we have some new people here. We have a way to go with this. Uh, if you raise your hands, I will very much appreciate it. I'm gonna consider you with my whole heart, but I need you to actually use the chat. So follow Efrain's example. You have to type an exclamation mark. That way we know who is talking first, who is talking last, and it's easier for me just to follow the order in that way. Um, I don't think I'm missing anything. Most of the time, some of us kind of like answer the specific questions. That's fine, but keep it a bit short so we don't extend too much and people forget what they're trying to say. And that's about it. Besides that, remember to follow us on social media. Okay, I'm gonna just let Nancy do the announcement. Go ahead, Nancy.
Yeah, thanks, Fernando. Yeah, just a couple of brief announcements before we get started. Again, I am excited for this topic. Well, first and foremost, thanks to everybody who came out to the final screening of the Philosophy and Film series. It was a lot of fun. Again, we screened 2 series of vignettes titled "We Don't Know." If you'd like to see how the conversation went, again, you can find us on YouTube. Every meeting we hold gets uploaded to YouTube, so you can go and find us there. Just search Dallas College Philosophy Club. Next week, big announcement, folks. Big announcement. Next week is the Dallas College Philosophy Undergraduate Student Conference. So every semester, the philosophy department at Dallas College, Richland campus specifically, we host a philosophy conference. So again, it's an official academic conference. We've had students participating from Dallas College, all 7 campuses, as well as students who attend four-year universities from around the Texas area and even beyond. We got a couple guest speakers coming in this semester for the conference. A professor from St. Thomas University up in St. Paul, Minnesota. We also have a professor speaking from the Honors College at the University of North Texas, Denton. And then we have a faculty presentation as well from the Eastfield campus. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. So again, if you're interested in presenting, if you're interested in attending, all the information is provided right here on the Teams page. All you have to do is click on Files, and you can find the particular file that has, again, Dallas College Philosophy Undergraduate Student Conference labeled, and you can see, yeah, all the details if you'd like to submit, for a possible presentation, or just how long it's going to be. Again, it's an all-day affair, 10 a.m. until 4 p.m. And yes, we cap off the conference with a philosophy club meeting. So next week, we may have a lot of new members. That's what happened last time. Some from, again, four-year schools, Texas A&M, Texas Commerce. They want to come and just see what the philosophy club is like because they had presented earlier during the conference. So just be aware of that. Again, we already have the topic at our disposal. Again, we're sticking with the monthly theme of art. I should say that. Again, we're beginning the final monthly theme for the semester, and it is art. Again, we started with reality. Again, what is real? And then we moved on to truth. What can we know about what is real? And then we moved on to society. How do we apply what we think we know about what we think is real? And now here we are with art. Now, art is, again, very specific. Again, we've gotten gradually more microscopic. Now, again, the question will be, is art specifically a human thing? And the way we're going to first try to approach that is, well, what is aesthetic experience? What is it to perceive something not as either, threatening or safe, kind of like the flight or fight response. It's how do we perceive something as specifically beautiful? And philosophers across the centuries have all weighed in on this. So yeah, today we'll be talking about, before we get into art proper, let's talk about what beauty is, what is it to have, again, an experience of witnessing something that is beautiful? Is it purely a human thing? What goes into, again, an aesthetic experience as it unfolds? Does it require more than just the five senses? Again, animals have the five senses. Do they experience quote unquote beauty? Or does there need to be some sort of conceptual apprehension? So yeah, just kicking it off like that. Again, conference next week. And thanks for the film series turnout last week. And then I believe we have a collaboration with the Art Club on which we're working that would happen the final week of the Philosophy Club, which is finals week, which is again 2 weeks from next week, 3 weeks from today. Okay, I'll turn it over to the students. Thank you.
Thank you for that long announcement. So yes, it's okay, it's okay. I'm not. I'm just teasing mood. That's all there is. So, okay. So I have a question because I'm not completely sure if Rain was just helping out or he already has something to say. If you already have something to say, I don't mind just yielding the floor to Efrain. So
Okay,
speak
hey,
now or whatever hold your peace.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So I kind of wanted to approach this topic. I was thinking about this this morning or whenever the email got sent out. I wanted to think about this a bit and what just viewing kind of like art and aesthetics from a very like kind of like a 10,000 foot overview, so to speak. I think what gives rise to kind of aesthetic experience and art in general, well, maybe not something that gives rise to it, but something that should be considered. I think everyone pretty much would agree with this, is that art and whatnot is largely dependent upon what it is not, right? Because you can take like let's just take like a painting, right? If you had a computer like divide each of the little like divide a canvas into like these microscopic pixels, and then you had it randomly put color onto a canvas, in order to get like a masterpiece like a Van Gogh or like a Picasso or something of that level. I mean, those are like of all the combinations, it's like, one in like a quadrillion or something like that. Like the number is so low that a computer would ever get that. So I think that part of what gives rise to art and the aesthetics experience, generally speaking, is what something is not, right? Because there's all these other possibilities of what someone could do with a color, their tools at their disposal, just every single thing. There's all these things that they can do, but almost none of it, statistically speaking, none of it will give rise to an aesthetic experience or be what we consider art because it's so small. It's like, the 99.999% percentile, which is, near almost infinitesimally small, yet it still happens, right? So it doesn't just occur through randomness. It occurs through something, someone who shows what, let me rephrase that. It doesn't, the art is also what it is not, right? It also shows the reason why we can value art to a large degree is because we realize, oh, this is not just random. This just can't happen randomly. This could be all these other things of near infinite possibilities, yet it is this thing which is impossible to arise kind of natural or randomly. So I think that's what kind of gives the beauty of art to, pun intended there, is through what art is not. We realize that it could be all these things. We realize that color could be combined in all these ways, but it only comes together as art in very, very extremely small circumstances. So part of the reason we value art is because we realize what it is not.
Okay, that's very interesting. All right, there is a lot to dissect there, but I see that the queue is exploding. So I'm kind of like tempted to maybe. You want
Just
yes?
quick response. Yeah. I wonder, and I'll just, briefly throw this out there, and then maybe we can circle back around because I do want to hear from the queue. But I wonder what the role of intention or intentionality is behind art, according to how Efren is describing it. Does there need to be a sort of intention to make art in such a way where human beings are consciously saying, this is going to be something different? This is going to be not what is naturally produced, what we find in nature. Or is this some sort of potential pathway to a justification for a creator who has created nature, and then nature naturally, organically produces things that are perhaps objectively beautiful? Or is there no such thing as objective beauty? So again, I wonder about the idea of intention behind, again, beauty as it's sort of perceivable, as well as beauty as it's created. But okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, no, it's fine. I want to make one mention on this tiny thing, just tiny. Don't worry. Like we do have a goal today, team. The goal is that Verushka participate at least once. Just saying. Uh, I haven't forget. But anyways, moving on, we go to the chat. So we have Courtney. She's saying animals like birds often have the bright color marking because it helps them get a mate. Could that be beauty? That's an interesting question. And then we have Yusha. Yusha, you are next.
Hey, thanks. Great discussion, guys. So, Efrain, you mentioned that a random assortment of pixels with colors and whatnot could be compared to Van Gogh, quote unquote, and other major artists, current and deceased. So, in that case, would it truly be considered art? Because I know that so in my ethics and philosophy class with Manzi in 2019, I believe, we studied that there's a concept in philosophy where, for example, I make a cup, right, out of ceramic, wood, or whatever, and I put myself into it. Hence, it becomes an extension of who I am. It becomes me, right? So does that not mean that for something to become a part of something, it has to be organic? Like here we're discussing art and nature, right? Philosophy of art. I forgot. Yes, art and beauty. Okay. So not necessarily is it always gonna be that something what the majority considers beautiful is beautiful, because uh, I'm a very novice photographer, right? And I find beauty in chaos, like lightning storms, floods, old war sites, rundown buildings, and stuff like that. I find beauty in that because I try to find the optimism from the chaos that had taken place. And for me, that's beauty. But for others, they're like, oh my God, you're crazy running out there with a camera in a thunderstorm. It's the same thing. Someone brought up in the chat that birds bring stuff to find their potential mate, and yes, it might be, but see, we cannot say exactly because we don't perceive things from their shoes, and we perceive things from our shoes, right? And we did an experiment with Manzi right before COVID and everything started, where he had these workshops at school, and we had to attend them for once. This one time there was like taste. It was basically a challenging all our five senses, right? And in the end, there was a surprise session where he challenged our sixth sense, where a lot of the perception and the non-concrete goes there, like love, beauty, all these other senses that make us human, yet individuals. So let me propose this question. If we perceive beauty, right? We see a puppy and we go, oh, it's so cute, it's a puppy. Do other beings, like specific animals, of course, do they feel the same way towards us? And there is a scientific answer, but I want you to think about that for a little while.
Okay. You propose the question and then you think about it. That's another way to go in this. So now we move on into the chat.
Think about
Okay, so think about it. Yeah, that's Nancy's catchphrase. So there is, if you want to use it, you have to pay money. That's how we get money for our funding. We don't do fundraising. That's too mainstream. Okay, so I see. So yes, then you should you put lol. So I'm obligated as a contract. I have to say lol or ha 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 every time that you write it. I'm obligated. So there you go. I said it. Amansi, you're next.
Yeah, again, I want to hear from the rest of the queue, but quickly, I like that point about the birds because it suggests that perhaps beauty, and Fernando, you put this in one of the questions, perhaps beauty is somehow rooted in biology. And so I posed this question to everybody who's here, all 25 or whomever people. Try to remember the first time you put two and two together, where you looked at something or maybe someone and said, that is beautiful. What were the features of that particular moment, of that instant? Were you recognizing, again, things like, I don't know, I suppose physical features like shapes and colors and, was it something like I suppose an outfit or a wardrobe that caught your attention? Was, something along the lines of, I guess I use my own example. I remember when I was young, I was raised in a family that loved baseball. And I remember seeing like, the baseball uniform for the first time. And I remember like thinking to myself, that looks good as clothing. Like that's cool. And what informed my decision of like, wow, what a beautiful uniform. I don't know if it was simply the colors or the design. It might have been the context. It might have been, and when I say context, I mean, again, something like I have an understanding of maybe the history of these colors. So in my case, I'm a huge New York Yankees fan. So the navy blue and white and the pinstripes, it has a whole kind of unique history to it. But again, it takes a human being to understand things like that, things like history, the conceptual context out of which arises particular physical, again, we'll say features that can be appreciated aesthetically. So I suppose just really quickly, I said I'd be quicker than this, but I do want to bring this to our attention here. I wonder if there isn't a connection between what we can perceive with our senses as quote unquote beautiful, making these aesthetic judgments. I don't know what art is, but I know what I like kind of thing. I wonder if there's not a connection between that and then again, things that we perhaps, I suppose find desirable or pleasurable. So there's a certain kind of pleasure, you might say, that comes with regarding an object of beauty, a painting, maybe listening to a song. It could be auditory beauty, not necessarily visual beauty. What is that experience? That's the aesthetic experience. Are non-rational animals capable of that? Or does it start there and maybe there are degrees of aesthetic experience or aesthetic appreciation? So maybe humans, if they're capable of more depth, they just have a deeper experience, which isn't to say that animals aren't capable of appreciating beauty. Or maybe when it comes to animals, is beauty simply put in terms of what is innately desirable, as opposed to, no, I can step back from my desires or my sensations and simply regard what's beautiful. Stop laughing at me, Fernando. All right, I'm done talking for the rest of the meeting.
No. It was not at you. It was with you. You put it in a nicer way. What I was thinking, like. Yeah, but no, this is the thing. Like you said, like what they feel desirable. In my mind, I was thinking of one specific word that I cannot mention in this meeting. But moving on. No, before I move on, actually, I do have something else to add. Something that I found interesting about your comment, if there is anything to take interesting about your comment, is that whenever you mentioned like about the fashion, you said that like specific colors and maybe also the shape, how it is like presented. But when it comes to beauty, Like you found that beauty in that moment, but then other people that comes like years after, they see that and they may not find it beautiful. So like it seems like beauty changes with time, and sometimes it's kind of like a circle. Like sometimes kind of like people get bored of seeing something beautiful and it's no longer beautiful, and they desire something else. So they redefine beauty as it comes because it gets boring. So it's kind of like, it's an interesting concept. Just saying. But well, with that being said, next one is the salty boy. Go, sparkle something of what has already been said. Go, and then let's go. Yeah, no, no, okay, nothing.
It seems like we've kind of been asking a lot more questions than giving definitions here. So I don't know. But just to kind of build on that, it seems like sort of who was first? Efren and then Manzi. You guys kind of represented two of the points that, like David Hume, who he kind of believed that beauty was this cognitive function. Is that like you essentially it's in the eye of the beholder, so to every single person it's different because they kind of recognize the beauty in it. And then you had someone like Kant who was like, well, it's beautiful because it invokes a feeling. And so I kind of think it's a little bit of both. I think it's a human thing, if that makes any sense. What I mean is that like when you're thinking about an individual, we're all biologically very similar, we're all genetically very similar. So there's this foundation that's just the same. But individually we're different because we all have prior experiences and different kinds of likes and desires and passions that makes us different. So art and beauty in that same sense is kind of similar, where it's like maybe there is this golden mean, golden ratio that maybe there are certain aesthetics that appeal almost universally. But then you have other forms of art that kind of appeal to our emotions, to our feelings, and that invoke something. Like when if I'm listening to a love song, I will only 9 times out of 10 I might find that beautiful because maybe I admire the feeling of love, or I might be in love. Or if I'm going through a heartbreak, I might listen to a heartbreak song and say like, man, that was beautiful. Would I be as prone to saying that song was beautiful if I wasn't, not heartbroken? If I hadn't experienced that before? So it's like certain things are only invoking of beauty because they can, emphasize these experiences. But then at the same time, like you kind of have these universal facets as well, where you kind of think about it. Well, maybe I like that. What's up? Oh, okay. Maybe we look at something and we can all commonly say maybe that's ugly, maybe that's beautiful. So what beauty really is.
Manuel, let me do something about it. Let you continue.
I don't think there's a real definition. I think it's humanistic, I guess, in that sense.
Yeah, but Orlando, just really quickly. Okay, every single human being who puts their hand into a flame will feel pain, right? That's universal. So if there are universal sensations that certain
Actually,
sources
no. There's a medical condition where it makes hot feel cold and vice versa. So it's not a universal foundation.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it will be my pleasure. Yes, of course. 1 second.
He's digging his own grave. Don't worry.
There's some background noise happening. No,
going against the advisor.
The point being is this: if there are universal sources of pain, then correspondingly, are there universal sources of pleasure? And by that I mean specifically these aesthetic pleasures. Like, if we could say, okay, every time this sensation occurs, it results in pain. Can we say the same thing about things that result in pleasant feelings? And if you try to apply that to art, is it the same thing? Is it possible to say there are certain renderings, certain works of art that everybody will consider universally poor or bad or ugly? And vice versa, are there certain forms of art that everybody would consider to be beautiful? Like, are there certain forms of beauty that transcend, again, the particular context, the particular place and time, historically speaking? Because, whether you were born in 3000 BC or today, if you put your hand into a flame, it burns and it hurts. Is there anything universal like that with beauty?
Well, there's a difference there, I think, because when you're speaking about pain,
can we mute Orlando?
It's something biological. It's something very specific. When it's something like art, it's more intrinsic. It's not something that you can kind of measure in that same sense. And to go on that is like, okay, you have the color red. Certain psychological studies say that, oh, red kind of, for some people, emphasizes anxiety. But then when you study different cultures, actually in China, people, they kind of associate red with happiness. So essentially, there you go. Two cultural differences give you two different kinds of outlooks on the same color. So that's not to say that there isn't the pre-existing foundations that can be, what build beauty, I guess in that same sense. Maybe that does exist. How much that exists, I don't know. But I don't think it can always be universal.
Hey,
Okay.
just a quick input on that. I agree with you, Orlando, on that because pain is a measurable scale, right? You can put it on a scale of 1 to 10, but not beauty. If you ask someone, okay, for example, this painting or this flower is beautiful, put it on a scale of 1 to 10, they'll be like, no, it's beautiful, as simple as that. So I think maybe that's why it could be another contributing factor to why uh, beauty in its original sense is not exactly a universal definition. It changes from person to person.
Okay. Even though I do have something to say, I'm gonna recur to the queue. We have people waiting, so I'm just gonna let them go. And we have Osira. You're next.
Um, yeah, hi. Uh, I was gonna say first of all that when I first read about the topic, the first thing I thought about, which was mentioned in the chat, was birds. Those a different kind of bird. There's a bird, I don't know, in the rainforest, right, that will build a nest to attract a mate, but it's not even like a nest. It's like a house. It's like a house on the ground. But each house is different. So they'll get like flowers or twigs or different flowers, different colored this, different colored that. And they'll build this house. And then the female birds will walk by and then they'll judge and then they'll see who they want to move in with pretty much. Um, and so I think it's a little different actually from like a peacock showing off its feathers. All peacocks kind of look the same. Maybe these birds in like ultraviolet light and things like that, some of them. But I thought it was really interesting that these birds who build these little houses, they're all distinct. They're all completely distinct. And so these female birds have to, I mean, I don't know, I guess use the power of discernment, right? To judge these houses on beauty, or maybe it's just structural integrity or whatever it might be. We have to assume it's beauty since they're decorating it with flowers and stuff, and choose a mate based off of that. Choose a mate by using their discernment and then let's say ostensibly like this house is more beautiful, so I will move in with this guy. I've always anyway, that's just what I thought about. So I've always, I guess I'll go off of that and say that natural law, right, in this universe, in this reality or whatever, natural law is sort of woven into everything that we do. It's kind of hard to escape it. So, whether it's these birds building houses for their mates, building distinct houses and decorating inside and everything like that, or, whether it's a tree or some flowering plant trying to attract bees, or whether it's us painting a picture or writing a song. I think it's all sort of some level of art, some level of expression. And I also have a very broad definition of art. Like Professor Manzi said, doesn't just have to be visual. There's music. I think chefs are artists. I think whether or not the plate even looks pretty, if it tastes good, I think that's artistic expression. Martial arts, clearly, it's in the name. Martial arts is art. Dancing, being a doctor, being a good lawyer. These are, even being a scientist, you're writing papers, the way you go about experiments can be argued to be artistic. Art is simply just an expression of oneself in whatever it is that you're doing. If you put a little bit of yourself into it, you are creating art. It just depends on how deliberately that you're doing it. But I see art in everything. I don't think that it's confined to just artistic disciplines. A mathematician is art, a physicist, or a mathematician is an artist, a physicist is an artist, a composer is an artist, a flower, a tree producing a flower is an artist, these birds are artists. It's natural law and it's woven into everything that we are. And I don't think we can separate ourselves from that just because we have I guess, a higher form of what we perceive to be a higher level of intellect. But yeah, that's me.
Yeah, good contribution out there. You were saying something that I wanted to say later, so there you go. We're on the same page at least. All right. So Emma, you're next.
Hello. I was just gonna think. I've been thinking of something that I'm sorry if I say it. Is it Yusha? Said earlier about how and it just got me thinking about how a lot of the times art is very personal for people, and I feel like a lot of the time beauty is perceived in a very personal level, and this is mainly for humans. A lot of the times we see beauty in things that we can connect to, whether it is in a positive or negative way. You were talking about how sometimes you see a disaster, or you see something bad and you see something poor, and you try to connect with it in a personal way, and you still manage to see beauty because you can see that personal part of it. And whether have an experience personally with it, or you just know that person, you just know the personal connection to it, I feel like a lot of the time beauty comes out of that, is just being pulled from personal experience, or just recognizing that experience in other people. So yeah.
Good stuff. There you go. Again, I see the chat is wanting to say a lot, so I'm sorry I'm not addressing much your comments. Just that I want to make sure that everybody has the time to speak. So I see George, you're next. You said that you have some personal definitions.
Yeah, I'm a definition guy, if y'all maybe picked that up from me last time. So I started working on a few definitions really at the beginning of the conversation. And I'm going to type all of this into the chat here because I'm about to say a lot of things. So try to bear with me here. I'm going to say that an aesthetic experience is an apprehension of beauty or the lack thereof. Okay, so to understand that, we've got to define beauty. So I think there was a lot of good discussion about beauty here. Orlando, raising the question, is it something that's in the thing, or is it something that happens in our feelings? And I think it's both. I think that beauty is a quality held by someone or something. It's in the thing, or it's in the person, or it's in the work of art, but it's something that inspires pleasurable feelings of awe, gratitude, meaning, and ultimately, I think, worship. So there are feelings that go along with it. I think you need both for beauty to happen, or for beauty to have its full impact. It's in the thing, but it creates a response in us. And I think, coming from a Christian perspective, beauty is held infinitely and perfectly by God, who's the source of beauty. He's the most beautiful. He has the most stuff in him, and we apprehend it and ultimately worship him. And his beauty kind of overflows into his creation, especially us human beings. And I'm going to say that art is good. There's good art when it inspires awe, inspires gratitude, inspires worship of God, or if it communicates meaning, especially in ways that words can't express. So I'm seeing here in the chat, if Van Gogh sneezed into a Kleenex, would that Kleenex be art? Probably not, because it wouldn't communicate meaning. But the fact that you asked that question meant that there's now meaning in that Kleenex, which means you make it art by asking that question. You elevate it from a common tissue to now it's something we're thinking about and looking for meaning about. You made it art. Congratulations. You probably shouldn't have done that. Just kidding. So I'm gonna type all this that I said in the chat. If y'all want to engage with anything I said.
Hey, quick question for you, George.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're aware of the duct tape banana that was in the museum a little while back. And I believe this would be considered the same reference as that banana. Like I 100% agree with you on everything you said. But just to invoke conversation and a good thought process, like why not? If Van Gogh sneezes in a in a Kleenex and sticks it up on a wall, and I put a title under it, Van Gogh Kleenex, you know, just just the amount of collectors that would be interested in without even understanding. Like I understand art because I took almost like 2-3 years of it in high school and college. But as I mentioned in the chat, I extremely dislike the Starry Night. It invokes anxiety and a bunch of other bad stuff in me. But that doesn't mean I don't understand art, right? Again, it's up to the person's perspective, not even just asking the question. I mean, I agree with you, but just as a kind of back and forth for it.
Sure. I would say that perhaps the Van Gogh tissue would not inspire awe. I don't think it would do that. I don't think it would inspire gratitude. I certainly don't think it would inspire worship. But I think it would if we put it on a pedestal and say, this is Van Gogh's tissue. Is it art? I think it would communicate meaning. I think that would start a conversation like we're having right now, right? So because we're doing this, because there is meaning to be gleaned from the tissue, it's art. As soon as we start asking something, is this thing art? You probably made it art. Whoops. That's my take.
Yeah, good stuff. Good take. All right. So yes, moving on. And I see that I read that article too, that elephant thinks that we're cute. And that's why they are like, yeah, what's the stuff? So that's
But
fancy.
wait,
And need to buy
that,
an elephant.
that's not even scientifically proven. It was just posted as a meme. It was on Reddit or something. It's not even proven. And after research was done into it, if anything, elephants take us as a threat. If you just randomly
Okay.
stroll up to an elephant in the wild or even in captivity, the first instinct of the elephant is to step back or take charge towards you. I
Yeah.
mean, they don't
I,
think we're
I
cute. I
imagine
mean,
that there is
it's
an experience component there. Like for example, like many people find like doggies and puppies like cute. But if you have a bad experience with a dog and then you see a puppy, you still kind of like afraid of a puppy. I'm assuming that there's more into it. Of course, it's not universal for all elephants to find us cute, but hey, it's good to think that some of them find me like, appealing to the eye. Just a thought. But yes, we move on. In this case, I'm not completely sure if Verushka was trying to say something, but you say, yeah, me too, George. Were you trying to say something or not? You say like this. Okay, so now, so we continue. Courtney, she says, certain colors cause us to be more susceptible to certain feelings. Red and yellow awaken feelings of hunger, hence why certain colors are used a lot in marketing. This makes me think that maybe biologically certain beauty is evolutionary beneficial, like our ancestors gathering berries. And then she continues, even if the pain is universal, that doesn't mean we all experience the pain in the same way, which is true. Then Ravi, hello Ravi, I didn't see you. Your camera is off. Um, you said in response
Wait,
to
wait,
Professor
wait, wait,
Manson.
wait, wait.
Yes.
I want to respond to that. That's a couple of great points there. Yeah, this idea of and they've been echoed in points already made, and the things I touched upon at the beginning of the meeting. But yeah, this idea of I suppose individual pain or feeling things. So I guess maybe to be more specific, the way that the conditions that allows one to experience pain are maybe universal, but perhaps the way in which one processes it or the way in which one, I suppose, seeks closure from it or seeks to come to terms with it, maybe through art, if there is such a thing as art therapy. Perhaps that is something that's more individual. But again, that gets back to my earlier point of the intention behind things. So again, if you see a sunset, was that a work of art by an artist who intended to produce something beautiful visually for the creatures that have vision? I guess that goes back to George's point. But yeah, I digress. But I wanted to highlight those points. I thought they were good ones.
Okay, good thing. All right, so we continue. Then now, Ravi. In response to Professor Mansi, it's really hard to find an universal definition or universal appreciation of beauty. It's really is in the eyes of the beholder because the lens you're using determines what is beautiful, ordinarily or ugly, and the lenses where we use are all different. And then look at your next. Remember the Mansi already kind of like put you on the spot last week, and you have to like step
Yeah,
up.
Luke, if I may, I'd like to respond to that.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, just briefly. Yeah, again, this idea of beauty is relative. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. That seems to be at odds with some of the other points coming up here, which is to say that perhaps it's human nature to appreciate beauty and that we perceive it in similar general ways, but then the way in which we, again, process it might be unique to us and our, prior experiences. Yeah, but also I do wonder, again, if there are certain biological beauty imperatives, we might say, perhaps it's not a question of sheer freedom. And by that I mean, again, is beauty something that is completely open to human interpretation, or are there things that are beautiful that simply take hold of us? Have you ever seen something you were like, I wish I didn't like this, but I do? I don't like this particular person, but I like what they created. Something along these lines. It's also worth mentioning that way back in the day, going back to the origins of philosophy, I mean, they understood beauty to be tied to love and desire, and even more acutely, they understood beauty to be something that was overpowering. Like the sign of something that's beautiful is something that like is just it's so terrific that it's borderline. I guess overwhelming is the best term. It's something that kind of transcends one's own ability to decide for oneself whether or not it's beautiful. It's like it is beautiful. It doesn't seem like people are really on board with that during this conversation, but it's worth mentioning that was the initial understanding, at least in the West. Okay, I'll turn it over to Professor Ulrich.
I think that Professor, but can everybody hear me? Okay, I think that Professor Mansi and I have talked enough that right before I was going to speak, he said what he thought I was about to say, which is right. So I was going to talk about beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I don't really have much to add. Let me show this. Let me see if I can. Here we go. Oh, it's backwards. There's no way to flip it around, is there? Either way, throughout this conversation, we've been talking about two things. One is the person experiencing the aesthetic experience, and the other is the object. And people have been going kind of back and forth and talking about those two aspects of the aesthetic experience. And as Professor Mansi just brought up, thinking about beauty is in the eye of the beholder, it brings up the question of, well, can anybody be wrong about an aesthetic experience? Let's say at one time in your life you saw something and you thought it was ugly. And later you're like, you know what? No, that's actually really beautiful. I just didn't understand it before. Well, what happened? Did you learn something about the object where the object then showed its beauty to you? Was it there all along waiting to be seen? Or is it merely my experience? So the question is partially about the status of the object outside of us. Is beauty out there waiting for us to uncover it? Or are we kind of bringing it to experience? And yeah, I think that's what I wanted to say. So I'll let it to y'all now.
Hey, Professor Ulrich. I was actually just thinking about that because yesterday I bought a bottle of Creed Aventus. For those of you who don't know, it's a perfume. Like, it's just a perfume. And at first, when I bought it, at first application, I hated it absolutely because the opening notes were so sharp, and then it dulled down, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into perfumery. So, but in a nutshell, I hated it at first, right? But after wearing it for 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 10 hours, I was like, okay, maybe it's not that bad. And today I'm wearing it again. and then again, and then again. So I feel like we've all been through this similar experience, but not actively thinking about it. Think about a food that you might have eaten, right? Maybe you didn't like it at first, and now you're like, okay, I'll give it a try, like maybe seafood, caviar, lobster, whatever have you. But yeah, that's actually a very interesting point that you brought up.
Yeah. I just want to mention this. Professor Aldrich drew even a presentation. You see a graphic. Nancy didn't. Not comparing or anything, just pointing something out. That's it. Okay.
I petition
So
to change
Salty
the
Boy, you're next.
advisor.
Oh, I didn't say it. You just said it.
Hey,
I'm
I'll
not saying
say
that.
it, you know.
You just said it. I'm not saying anything. He said it. So
I will.
So-
I will sign that petition. I will sign that petition right now.
okay, so Salty Boy, you're next. Spread some pepper.
So it's kind of funny. I kind of want to go off of what you guys were already talking about. I personally, I think it is about the experience, mainly because you could say that it's something that needs to be uncovered, but perhaps we're all uncovering it through our experience because we're all similar genetically. You know, so what I mean by that is that if it's really in the object, you know, if I have a snake who has a different perspective of the world due to the light that they can actually perceive, they're not going to be looking at the same object in the same fashion that I will be. And that's due to genetics, due to biology. So it's not necessarily, I don't think it's necessarily it's in the object, it's just an experience in and of itself. And so perhaps we all come to uncover this because we are all capable genetically to uncover it. And that is, once again, through experience. And so when I'm just talking personally, I feel like there's these two different kinds of beauties I might have, maybe even more, but I can't think of them, which is the superficial beauty, which I feel it's much more of a stimulus. It's much more genetic. It's just, I just automatically feel like it's beautiful. I might look at a person and be like, wow, that person's beautiful. I don't know who they are. I don't know what kind of person they are. But just because I look at them, I'm like, wow, they're beautiful. Maybe if I get to know them and I don't like their personality, I'm like, they're kind of ugly. Let's stay away. But what I'm saying is, like, then you have that superficial beauty, but then you have another tier where you're like, okay, now it's based on value. Now I can look at, like, I can go to the lake. I can look at the water, you know, in the motion of the water and say, wow, this to me kind of is a perception of life, that where, you know, everything is so still but yet moving at the same time. So to me, that's something I've created. It's a meaning, like how George was saying, it's a meaning I've created through my prior experiences. Something that is not really intrinsically, it's not specifically beautiful to everyone, is not beautiful to me.
Yeah, Orlando, I like your distinction here between two forms of beauty. So it's kind of like the beauty in terms of desires that are like genetically encoded within us by virtue of the kind of organism we are. And then there's the kind of beauty that comes with deliberation. So, I mean, to your example, maybe, you know, there's a person that you find aesthetically appealing, but then you get to know that person on a more profound level, on a more personal level. And there are aspects that suddenly, I suppose, diminish the original aesthetic appeal. And one is immediate and the other is sort of, you know, comes through experience. But just consider something that Luke said. This idea that perhaps beauty is there waiting to be activated by people who can recognize it, or organisms that can recognize it. But that suggests, well, what if there is beauty embedded in the world somewhere, and we just miss it. We never come to see it. We never come to recognize it. I mean, it's kind of like if a tree falls in the woods and no one's there to hear it, if there's beauty that exists and not a single human being recognizes it as beautiful, is it real? Is it there? Or does it require human perception? Does it require human acknowledgement to fulfill or complete its promise of beauty?
Well, is beauty a natural principle, or is it a human principle?
That's
I think
one of the things we're trying to set right now.
Personally, sorry, just to I kind of want to clarify. I think it's human because, oh, cat, oh man. I think it's human because I take it the same way art is human. It's, you know, it's an expression. art isn't something that's a natural. It's not. You can't look in nature and be like, art came from nature. I can't really explain it. All right, I'll stop there because I don't really know what I'm saying.
Thank you for wasting 30 seconds of our meeting. So, all right. So this is the thing. Now we have to be very quiet and standing still. We have a special person speaking right now. So, Verushka, you're next.
Oh snap. Oh, okay. There's like 10 different topics that like anyways, so wait, you guys can hear me, right? That's it.
Absolutely. We're
Okay,
all
cool.
ears.
So at first, like one of the things that I was thinking about was like and it's hard to say like universally, but like I guess innately we see or we find beauty or things that are beautiful kind of have similar features, I guess. Like we find a lot of things that have symmetry or symmetrical to be pleasing to the eye, or like rhythmically, whether that be through like a visual aspect or an auditory aspect. Like we find that to be pleasing, and I guess like balance. But going off of that, like, is that beautiful? I mean, and it's kind of like what you guys mentioned, like, is that beautiful because we see that and we appreciate it and like put a meaning to it, or is it just like or are we looking at the world or at things that we make and finding beauty in it versus creating it, I guess. I don't know. It totally got lost. I'm like trying to juggle like 6 different topics I want to talk about, and it's
You
hard
can
to.
always just juggle the one that you want to speak. But you're doing well. Like you don't
Yeah.
have to juggle all. Yeah, they're philosophers. They just bring things and things and things, and don't try to attack everything because then we never finish. So just focus on the thing that you want to speak. Was that all you wanted to say?
Well, it's hard because I'm trying to remember, but I'm sure I'll come back to it. I'll be like, oh
Okay.
shoot, yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
you do touch something, and I will not name names because some people may think it's rude or not. But like this is the thing, like sometimes they're like celebrities that everyone says like it's like the most beautiful thing they ever seen, and like I really stare and I like look for it, like, and I see like I don't see it, and like sometimes I can understand why people see it beautiful, but for me personally, it is not. So there is this kind of like, I guess that's what Orlando was kind of mentioning, that there is this notion of understanding beauty and like what is personally beautiful for us. And I think you were also trying to tackle into it. But okay, then we move on, and we have Courtney, which I think George already mentioned this comment, which is like, my art history teacher once said, if Van Gogh sneezed into the Kleenex, would that Kleenex be art? Then you said
Really,
yes.
really quickly, if I just to get back to the previous comment there before the chat, I do like that the idea of music has been brought up as beautiful, because I think that when most people hear beauty, they think vision, they think what you see, things that you can look at, but music is something you hear. And again, I love the example because there does seem to be, perhaps we can talk about this, something uniquely organic or innate about rhythm, about being able to sort of hear a rhythm. I mean, even without trying, maybe if you're just like lying in bed and you hear, a storm outside, you can almost pick up like a syncopation or something like that. So it is important to keep in mind that there are such a thing as auditory images. So not necessarily things like, the Mona Lisa or works of art, but things like symphonies, which are themselves works of art and called beautiful, not because of what they appear to be, but what they sound like. And yeah, it's worth considering. Because I posed the question much earlier. When's the first time you ever experienced something as beautiful? Maybe it wasn't something you saw. Maybe it was something you heard.
Yeah, I like your point. I like to create like like I don't know how it's called, like a scenery. Whenever I'm listening to something that has no visual, like if I'm running and there's like a music like boom, 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 and just kind of like create like a whole movie in my mind. Like it makes more like it creates something interesting from it. But that's beyond the point. Right now, I'm reading, because we're already at 4, and this chat just keep going further and further. So, you said that is my argument when people only refer to major artists when it comes art and beauty. I absolutely hate the Starry Night. But that doesn't mean I hate all art. As Asira said, there is art in everything. Which then George says, an aesthetic experience is an apprehension of beauty. Oh, this is basically what you were saying.
Please don't reread that entire thing.
Okay,
I
so
did say it.
moving
Yeah.
on. Yes. So Luis, you said, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. Excellent points, everyone. My computer is dying, so I will take my leave. Goodbye, everyone. Goodbye. Then Courtney, the worst by far is the artist Duchamp and his piece, the Fontaine. I'm starting to mix my languages. I don't want that to happen right now. Then Yusha, thank you for joining. Okay, you just leave. All right. Oh, interesting. I never saw that art. Okay, I will explore it later. Then Yusha, you have something to say by art by animals.
Hey, real quick before I go, can you finish up until George's comment at 347 because it's related to that piece and I don't want to be cutting in.
Okay, sure. So then I will continue. I think it is art because I assume it asks what is the opposite of beautiful. This is a meaningful question. Which Courtney then says the signature on it is that of another artist. Duchamp is basically mocking another artist. And then George say, that's for that. Thank you for the context, basically. Daniel then says, does a baby human think his mother is beautiful? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not.
Okay, now I'll take my turn because it's
And
away from the fountain now.
okay,
Thanks. Okay, so I have three things in mind. The first one was art by animals. Like we've all seen those videos where an elephant is painting, or cats rubbing paint on their fur and then putting it on a canvas. 9 times out of 10, what happens? It's a learned behavior and not learned through a good experience. It's learned through a very bad experience. If you actually take a deeper look into it, there's a lot of like torture and beating and a lot of bad stuff that's done to the animal to force it to paint like humans do. Why? Because that is how we perceive beauty, not how the animal sees beauty itself. As was mentioned earlier, birds bringing colorful stuff to their mates. That was one thing. Second is experience of beauty versus what we know. Okay, so take the thought experiment, for example. A person who was brought in this one very specific, let's say a town of businessmen where everything is black, blue, and gray, right? Maybe brown if you want to add some spice to it. And this person does not know anything outside of these four colors, right? And this guy somehow gets out of that society and goes into a place where it's super colorful, right? And does that mean he does not understand beauty? In my opinion, no, because what he knows is beauty within those four colors. To him, that is what beauty is. To him, what he understands as beauty is black, blue, gray, and brown. Anything that is made up of these colors is beauty. But for him, that colorful rainbow spectrum stuff is not him. He never experienced it. So as Professor Ulrich brought up, I think art is, to a very vast point, is a learned behavior. Art and beauty is a learned instinct. Like, okay, a lot of people like, what's it called? The Statue of Liberty. I have to like it too, for example, just to be able to fit in. So I have been thinking about it a lot, and I don't think there's a straight answer to it, because this person, if he lives long enough in this colorful society, he just might, start liking that art that those people produce. And last point was, see, when Professor Ulrich brought up his cat, everyone dropped what was on their mind. They were like, oh, it's a kitten. I mean, who doesn't like a cat? Unless you're a dog person, I'm sorry, then we have no friendship. But but yeah, this is exactly what we're trying to explore. That why does this reaction come out of us? Like if I pick up a puppy right now, a kitten, or any other animal or anything like that, people are just gonna go like, oh, what's his name? You know, they're gonna start inquiring about the animal more than they would be focusing on the topic. Why? Because it is an instinct that comes out of us. Oh, it's something I like. I have to express my emotion to it. So I think these 3 points were about it. And if anything comes up, then I'll just wait my turn, I guess.
Okay, thank you very much. Now next in line is Eva. After putting A, and apologizing for putting A, you're next.
So I had a couple points to agree with Manzi. I agree with him on the universality of the idea of beauty. Like I do somewhat agree that it is universal, but I would say that not the same thing for the same people at the same time, even for the same, like even amongst yourself or within yourself, you don't have the same definition of beauty like you did years ago. And the quick anecdote I was going to give was my dad is part of a Mexican family of like 10, and they were adopted by an American woman. And she kind of took them all over the world, and they were, 2 months here, 2 months there at boarding schools. But at one point they were in Ireland, and as soon as they arrived there, they thought all of the women were like incredibly ugly. They had some very choice words for how attractive they were compared to American women or Mexican women or whatever, other European women. Then a couple months went by, and they were like, wow, these women are beautiful. And they were dating him, and they were like, I don't know what I saw before. And it was just totally different, like it's like, man, I have the hottest girl in school. And it's like, I remember when I called her a dog 3 months ago, but, and I know that's horrible, but whatever. So just the point that, these things change as, within the country that we're in, with our experiences, through time, through like all of that. And yet the idea is somewhat universal of like, oh, this is beautiful. Even though for some people, something that everyone else finds as beautiful, you might find repulsive. And that might be the thing that, or vice versa, something that everybody else finds repulsive, I find beautiful simply because of everyone else's repulsion. So it's like maybe someone who doesn't feel love the same way others do still is capable of feeling love or seeing beauty, but it's just entirely like a different perception from person to person. So I can't remember what else I was going to say, but that's it. Thanks for letting me opine.
Yeah, thank you for
All right,
that.
thank you for saying.
Yeah, just and again to reinforce that point, I think it's a good one. So I mean, oftentimes people will say familiarity breeds contempt. That's kind of like a cliched, pessimistic expression. But the point here seems to be no, familiarity breeds appreciation. That familiarity breeds, I suppose, maybe breeds isn't the right term, but maybe it impacts one's perception of what is and is not beautiful. Because again, you're constantly exposed to something, and then one begins to see the beauty in it. And so it seems like what you're saying, Ava, is that maybe that process is universal. That's what happens with humans. But the actual particulars of what they once found beautiful and then what they now find beautiful, and maybe it changes, that is maybe unique to circumstances. Whereas the actual process of here's how our perception of beauty forms in dovetailing with our experiences, maybe that process is natural, that process is universal. But yeah, thank you for those points.
Okay, thank you. I will continue with the chat. We have Yusha saying, this conversation is beautiful. It invokes thoughts, asks meaningful questions, and links us spiritually. Then Nancy said, acquired taste. Yeah, this is an acquired taste indeed. And then we have Osita.
Hey, okay. Yeah, so my response, I guess I sort of thought of my response when Professor Manzi sort of brought up his sunset question, I guess. And so, I mean, I don't know. So, like with regard to something like a sunset, I would still call that personally, I guess, another expression of the natural world. Um, Although that, I mean, and I understand that sort of sounds like I'm personifying the natural world. Maybe I am. But you know, I think that I just have, I guess, I have a really broad definition of I guess, linking art and the expression of the natural world. Like I personally think like quantum mechanics equations are beautiful. I think the whole universe is beautiful. The whole dead, I guess, seemingly dead universe. I think that the intrinsic properties of the universe that allow the material world to exist, the cosmological constant or how much matter is in the universe compared to like dark matter, dark energy. If there's a little bit less, there could be no material world. It would all just sort of fizzle out, or the speed of light, or all these Planck constants. Um, these things seem beautiful to me. And it may be because they seem purposeful, like most art sort of does as humans. I've heard that suggesting that the universe is made for us is a logical fallacy. So I won't step into that. But even though I do believe in intelligent design, maybe it seems beautiful to me as a human because it seems purposeful. If any little thing was different, there would be nothing to observe it. Um, and that might be something I think George sort of posed this question. And I don't know if all of you know, like Heisenberg's theory, like Heisenberg's cat, right? It's both alive and dead until you actually observe it. Observation is some like weird thing in quantum mechanics that it can't be reversed. And it's necessary to get something to a different state, I guess. For that cat to either be alive or dead, it's necessary for it to be observed, or it's both, right? Technically, like I think we've all heard that. And so the same might be true, right? For beauty or art or aesthetic objects or expressions of the natural world or whatever you want to call it, that it has to be observed by something. Maybe not necessarily humans. I go back to my, certain plants will make themselves beautiful for their particular pollinators. I would call that an expression. I would call that art. I would call that an expression of the natural world. And it doesn't have to be observed by humans. It just has to be observed by the bee or the wasp or whatever is pollinating it. For instance, entomologists, right, study insects, and they think things are beautiful that most of us would probably find disgusting. So that sort of gets into the realm of like the subjectivity of beauty. But again, I go back to my previous example about birds building houses, different houses. That subjectivity of beauty is sort of still woven into our genes, woven into our biology, woven into the natural world. So I guess sort of to respond to, I think something that Orlando said is, I don't separate art and nature. I think that they are intrinsically linked. I think that they're one and the same. For instance, music is governed by math, right? Like a 3/4/3 beat or whatever, you hear drummers talk. But there are particular beats, there are particular rhythms that are pleasing to the ear almost universally, right? Poetry, I remember learning about iambic pentameter in literature class, or haikus, right? It's a specific 5/7/5. Even though you're creating art, you're using the natural world, using patterns found in the natural world. Sometimes, birds sing to each other, we sing to each other. We see Fibonacci patterns in architecture, we also see it in pine cones. When we talk about pleasing ratios, when it comes to buildings or sculptures or something like that, human beings also use pleasing
Right.
ratios.
Then in that moment, do you not find peace, tranquility? Do you not find giving yourself a purpose?
Certainly agree with your first point. Yes, I do believe, through the beauty of nature and beauty wherever it's found, God is speaking to us about himself. Certainly agree there. And I think I agree with your first point. I guess what I was trying to say is if God is not there speaking, if there's nothing intrinsic in the thing we are looking at, there's no real beauty there, then it means that what we are experiencing is just that. It's an experience prompted by our biology that's just making us feel something. That to me is disturbing. I guess that's the short of it.
Yeah, and I would just respond with, again, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying that, I'm trying to tease out the implications of your point, which is, again, I mean, even the phrase you just used, if there's not real beauty there, it makes beauty sound like mathematics. Either you have the right answer or you don't. And that puts a huge limitation on human freedom when it comes to creating meaning for oneself. Because if you want to say, this is meaningful to me, this is beautiful, it sounds like you're saying, no, God doesn't think so. You've miscalculated.
That's not what I'm trying to say. That's not what I'm trying to say. We're asking, is beauty in the object apart from our apprehension of it? So I don't really know if we can know for sure the answer to that question. I think yes, I suspect yes, I'd rather it be yes. No is possible. I don't know what we do with no.
But you admit that one can perceive beauty where it's not there, and therefore they are wrong, correct?
No. If somebody perceives beauty, it's really there.
Oh, okay.
We can sometimes not perceive beauty that is there, and we can grow in our appreciation for stuff. And then, all of a sudden, there's beauty that I see that I didn't before. What I'm saying is it was there all along. It's you who grew. You opened your eyes to the beauty. The same way that, like, if I'm in a cave and I can't see the sun, right, the sun's still shining. But if I open my eyes and see the sun, there's the sun there.
It sounds like you're saying an art tutor corrected you, just like a math tutor would correct you. You saw the right answer there, but it wasn't there. It's actually over here. That seems objective. That seems limiting people's freedom when it comes to deciding what is and is not beautiful. Again, I'm not saying I endorse that, but that's the implication of what you're saying.
I'll have to think about that some more. I'm not sure that's an implication of what I'm saying, but it might be. And you, the philosophy teacher, might be right, and I might be wrong.
I appreciate the points. And like I said, I'm not saying I agree with what I'm saying. But, just to keep the conversation moving. I love what you're saying, for the record. I think you're making some fantastic points. I'm sorry, we got to return to the queue. We're so over time. Yeah, please, Fernando, take it away.
Okay. So, all right. So Yusra, I'm not sure if it is a male or female in this case. I'm gonna admit it. So I'm gonna avoid saying the gender this night. It says, oops, not sure what happened, but I accidentally got disconnected for a second. All right. So then Yusha said, team has been experiencing issues all day. Haven't, but it's good to know. Okay, so now Meseret. She said, I like this topic and I'm glad to hear it. Then Courtney, there is a tribe in Africa that does not have a separate word for the color blue and actually cannot distinguish the color blue from green most of the time. Interesting. Then Yusha, well said, Eva, lol. As long as you agree with Professor Mansi, he will appreciate you, Lemao. So then Isidora, gotta go, bye-bye. Then Yusha, thank you for coming. Then Courtney, she posted an article in the chat, which is Human Vision. I'm assuming it's related to the comment previously. Then Yusha, you said, the beauty found in nature, is it our learned behavior to like it? I proposed this question because when traditional art was not a mainstream thing, people would find joy in the blooming flowers, the sky, animals, flowing water, rain, and active animal hunt, watching an animal hunt another, so on and so forth. Then Orlando, he said, I personally believe beauty and art are human constructs, though we believe to observe them in nature. If we could communicate with ants, would they have a concept of beauty? Of a thought? Then Yusha, I swear I was going to ask the same thing to Orlando. Then we have Perushka. But does that value equal beauty? Where Lucas says, I have to get going, but thank you. Oh, so he left. Yeah, for another great meeting. Courtney, what about fine women who are less endowed, beautiful? What advantage does that have? Okay, we're going that way. What Yusha then says, thank you for invoking our thoughts and sharing chic with us. Okay, I see the whole uh, baby thing comment. I wasn't there, so I couldn't understand. Then Osita, he said, for instance, the new Star Wars trilogy is garbage. Completely agree. But some people still pay money to watch it. Subjectivity of beauty. Yeah, I would say more of loyalty toward the past, like the previous movies. But I mean, whatever. I don't know if they see it as beautiful. Then Eva, you said this. I agree with OC. That beauty is natural regardless of the species because of the intrinsic value of the aesthetic thing, like the flower to the bee or a bee or a bird seeking a certain mate. Their very perception of that aesthetic thing or experience and the value that they give is mirrored in our perception. With regards to caveman days, there were drawing on the wall and even signs of pots of similar materials being used to make some kind of sound that they enjoyed possibly. Or maybe it was just a survival mechanism that we kept doing and eventually liked and turned into the pleasantness of music. Also, with regards of being the last two on earth, one being horrifically ugly, I'm assuming that is our perception, but it is the other person as well, with the broad definition of beauty that we have encompassed today, the ability, responsibility to save the world so that the beauty in that person may not lie in previous attractiveness, but what is necessary to survival since beauty is so dynamic. Then Yusha, he said, 5 years in Texas and I still dislike country music. Lol. I get it, but do not like it. Give it a couple more years. Then Nasita said, Orlando, a poorly guarded picnic is probably quite beautiful to an ant. Lol. Yeah, but me is or is it valuable to the ant as it when Carne said to be is to be perceived. And Veruska said, I gotta go, but good talk, everyone. Catch you later. Bye bye. Then Yusha, thank you for coming. Proud for participating. LOL. Then Orlando, I don't think that this is sort of illusion of I am creating this is so big because if God doesn't exist in that same sense, he's merely a concept of our imagination. I think creating your own meaning in itself is beautiful. And I'm not completely sure if I understood. Then Courtney, I had to go. Bye, but this was fun. Yusha, thank you for participating. See you next week. Then Osita. I go back to my quantum mechanics example. Observation is necessary, and observation alone does have physical effect on the physical nature of the particle or whatever is being observed. Schrödinger cat might exist. I may have said Heisenberg cat before, but until you observe and measure it, it is physically impossible to say whether the cat is alive or not, or beautiful. I will suggest, and this isn't necessarily my position, that beauty may exist, but requires an observer thought and not necessarily a human observer by any means to be beautiful. I'm assuming everyone is familiar with, I'm not going to pronounce it properly, Schrödinger cat. I hope I haven't confused anybody. Of course, I have some funny people here. Also, I have to clarify for the record that I love Star Wars. So 7, 8, and 9 are pure garbage. Agreed. And then we have lol, 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 ha, he, hu, ha, hu. Ha, got it right. That's right. And then we have George who wants to say something regarding the Star Wars 7 to 9. He said he's good. polemic, if anything, a little bit into the the very polemic moment. 8 is a masterpiece. Oof. All right, we are for a treat. But I'd like to circle back to the freedom question Jeff asked, and then we have more lol, lol, and beep, beep, boo, boo. There, I will go ahead.
So to use Jeff's term when he was talking about me and objective beauty, y'all are definitely wrong about Star Wars 7, 8, 9, but especially 8. You're incorrect. They're objectively good. But I've been thinking about Jeff's freedom question a little bit. He was like, does the fact that, or does my position that if beauty is objective, if it's really in the thing, does that limit human freedom? Does that limit our ability to create? And I think the answer has to be yes. I think I'll agree with him there. But it only limits us to the boundaries of, how do I put this? All the beauty that's out there, some of it's discovered by us, some of it is not. It's all put there by God. So like the scale we're talking about here is wherever God is, wherever God has placed beauty, which is huge, 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 right? That's what we're limited to. So practically we might be a little limited in our freedom to create beauty, but we can still recognize beauty that maybe no other human recognizes that God has put there, right? Just because we're confined by the boundaries God has set for us doesn't mean those boundaries are restrictive, I guess, is what I'd say. And again, to emphasize, I can be the only person on the face of the earth in human history to recognize the beauty in something. There's freedom there.
Like in
You still
episode
have
8.
that. Also, Star Wars 7, 8, 9 are good, and y'all are wrong about Star Wars 8, 9, but especially 8. And y'all can die mad about it.
Here's something to think about. Here's something to think about. Star Trek beats Star Wars any day of the week.
Oh, I mean, but we're branching out there. The point is like
so that's
the
dead
episode
wrong.
7 to 9 even like remove the continuity of other like canon stories that are amazing. Like I'm not gonna go into it, but I have reasons. Like I say, it sucks.
Okay, well,
But
let,
anyway.
let me respond to the philosophical point here. Yeah, again, like I said, George, I'm not like arguing against the point. I think it's a good one. I'm just playing devil's advocate. But consider what you're saying. God placed beauty in our world, in our environment. It sounds like you're saying a scientist placed a block of cheese. And will the rat find it? And if the rat mistakes, I don't know, the mulch bed for cheese, the rat is wrong. Because some other creator who created the environment has placed real beauty, real truth, real nutrients somewhere else, and the mouse is wrong. It sounds like what you're saying is there's real beauty that God placed here, and some humans will find it and some humans won't. That's what I mean by, a limitation on beauty, as opposed to God created a blank canvas and he created humans in such a way where they can create their own beauty and justify it rationally based upon the capacities he instilled within his creation. Two very different ways to look at a nonetheless Christian understanding of freedom. One is very limiting, the other is very empowering. I think both are Christian. Just throwing that out there.
I appreciate that. And I'll have to give that some more thought. And certainly the Christian view, I agree, it is a Christian view. We are made in God's image, right? So there's a certain amount of us sharing in his creative work. So yeah, definitely something worth thinking about more. And I appreciate devil's advocate stuff. Always makes things interesting.
Likewise. My pleasure.
Hey, I'll quickly add to it. Earlier you mentioned that we're limited to the beauties that God has given us, but I don't necessarily agree with that. Why? Because if you look at modern art, right, there's these shapes and figures that are not found in nature ever. Like, they're not naturally occurring. So we made it I'm not saying that in any way, shape, or form we're comparable to God, God forbid, but we are capable of creating beauty on our own.
Can it be both
not
and,
sure if
or is that
somebody.
cheating?
Huh?
Can it be both? Can it be that God already put it there, but also we create it, or am I speaking nonsense?
No,
Maybe it's one
that's
of those paradox things that seem contradictory at first, but really point to a deeper truth.
not that you bring it up. It might have been one of those things where, okay, it's hidden, but you go find it, you know, like I have made you capable of doing something. I have instilled this in you to create something that I did not purposefully, but it is up to you to accomplish that task. You know what I'm saying?
But I'm not sure we're going to do something or discover something that God didn't expect.
All right. Well, that'll do it, folks. Thanks for coming to the Philosophy Club meeting today. Of course, every time you hear the word God, that's a synonym for Professor Manzi. So that might help explain all the question. Like who creates beauty and who creates value? I'm joking, of course.
When Jeff Manzi cuts off abruptly, you'll know it's because of the lightning that struck him for saying things like that.
No, I'm joking. Do we have more in the queue? I think we got a couple more messages. Yeah, just now.
Well, we have what is probably the best comment of the whole meeting, which was from Eva. Yeah. So yeah, I'm just gonna go straight to it. Yeah. Let's read Eva. I think this is like top-notch comment. She said, "Oh my God, oh my God, 7, 8, 9, good!" Exclamation! You know, blah blah blah. As cheap knockoff with worse actors and better CGI. Yikes! Beauty is really dynamic. I love the OG Star Wars, but I prefer ones that don't ruin Luke Skywalker for no reason and logical story developing purposes. But okay, I don't know how long I have to say the E, but it's there. And then Jusha said, Eva trigger. And I see that lol. We need to have a meeting on Star Wars. It's art. We can make it fit. Let's see. Yeah, we have our first proposal for the last team. And then he says, Yusha, Lemao, I feel the same way as her. Is that why modern art generally suck? Ooh. Then Orlando says, what about abstract art? And Eva, Yusha, so triggered. Lol, I just hate to see something I grew up loving, even got bullied for, to be so redundant, and I will stop there. I respect your right as humans to feel that way. No, now we have respect to you. And then Osita he says, good point to Orlando. And that's it.
Can I just say this? I've never seen a single superhero movie. I'm not down with Marvel. I don't understand DC. I've never seen a Star Wars past the original 3. So I don't quite understand the appeal. I just don't get it, and okay. I judge everybody who enjoys those.
Yeah, I see.
I'm joking.
But my response summarized what Orlando just said. You're fired, Manzi. You're fired. You're fired.
The officers are gonna have to have a meeting about this. I mean,
what can
you've been charged for conduct.
I prefer movies about reality, not about non-reality.
Like
I mean, it is about reality. Oh, the guy finds, yeah. I mean, see. No, you have to go watch them. I'm not gonna sit here and explain them to you for your ease of convenience. But hey, guys, just to put it out there, you know, since forever, I've been the biggest devil's advocate. So if you find me saying something that is quote unquote offensive or kind of, you know, on the other end of the spectrum, please do not take it to heart. I swear that's not me. I just love playing the devil's advocate. That's just who I am, you know. I love Star Wars. I grew up watching it. And yes, I do agree with you guys, 7, 8, 9 suck. And yes, I just watched the first 10 minutes of them and then I quit. That's how bad I dislike them. So
He quit.
yes,
He quit the Star Wars altogether. Every
yeah,
segment.
I threw away every action figure I have. I threw away all the collectibles that I have, and I called it a day.
Yeah.
Listen, Yusha,
Okay.
don't worry. Nobody takes anything you say seriously. But I'm joking.
So when I grow up, I'll be like you.
Exactly.
Oh, exactly.
You got me. Okay,
Yeah,
Yusha's
that was a
fine.
good. That was a good throwback.
Fire Yusha. No, my whole point is this. Go watch a Ken Burns documentary instead of a Marvel movie. Go watch like a good documentary. Okay. At any rate, please come find the philosophy.
Someone mute Joffrey Mancy, and it was not me. I'm just saying that.
I don't have access to it. Man, you're muted.
It needed to be done, and he was spilled
It was
blasphemy.
It was
was
Orlando. Okay.
It was
So
the salty guy.
let's see.
Yeah, so check it out. Again, next Tuesday we'll have the philosophy conference. It starts at 10 a.m. It's going to go until the end of the philosophy club meeting. So please, if you like philosophy and you like talking about this stuff, come to the conference. It's going to be an all-day affair. You can pop in, pose a question, pop out. There's no commitment. You can come and go as you please, and you can speak as much as you like, or you don't have to speak at all. You can just take it in. Totally fine. So please, come to that. It's going to be a lot of fun. That's next Tuesday. And again, we only have a few more meetings left. And it looks like the last meeting will be a collaboration between the Art Club and the Philosophy Club. Topic TBD, but that's what it's looking like. And then from there, perhaps we'll continue over the summer. Perhaps we won't. We shall see who's available. We've made no efforts to secure officers for the next semester. So I'm pretty sure every single Philosophy Club officer is about to graduate. If you're interested in maybe serving as an officer for a semester, let me know. Would love to hear from you. If not, I might just kill the club and serve this purpose.
It's for the best.
We'll go out on top.
Yeah, it's better to finish in the golden age. After this, it's just downhill of the road.
Okay. Also, last but not least, I'd like to give a shout out to Fernando. He was awarded student of the year, and well deserved. I mean, he doesn't appear to be very competent in the philosophy club, but I'm sure in his other areas of interest, he comes across as very outstanding. I have to assume. I haven't witnessed it personally. I'm joking. Congrats, Fernando. It's well deserved. All right. Having said that, I'm Professor Manzi. This has been the Philosophy Club, first meeting on art. And again, I cannot overemphasize this. The Microsoft Teams page will be open all day next Tuesday. Just pop in whenever you see it rolling and just check in on the presentation. We're going to have presentations from colleges, students representing colleges that are 4 years that aren't necessarily tied to the district particularly. We have a couple of faculty guest speakers, very cool topics, very controversial topics, honestly, but I'm going to let it ride. So yeah, come check us out. It's going to be fun.
Okay. So I'm going to read a couple more comments. George said, Eva, Luke Skywalker goes out in the most profound and frankly bad.
Did he freeze for y'all too, or is it just me?
No,
yeah, he froze.
It's his internet.
Me too.
He froze, yeah.
He's like
Okay,
standing right now.
The conversation
I've
is,
caught up him.
Okay, where was you reading at? I'll just finish it real quick.
he was reading my comment where I go on my tirade about how episode 8 is good and Luke Skywalker was cool.
Gotcha, thanks. Luke Skywalker goes out in the most profound and frankly badass way imaginable, showing up the entire First Order and saving the Resistance without using violence, which is in line with everything the Jedi should have stood for. Agreed. Then Orlando says, "You're fired, Menzi. You're fired." I'm sorry, no offense to anyone. I just couldn't help it. Then Ava said WWE judge you, we judge you. Well, yes, okay. And then George said the fact that he failed to humanize him, which was the point of the film. Even our heroes are fallible, agreed. No one is incorruptible, agreed. Luke nearly murdered Vader in part 6, which happened in part 8, was very similar, arguably showed more restraint. Yes, character development. Osita asked Mandy, it's the hero's journey. That's why we watched them. Agreed. Ava says these are future documentaries from the future, smiley face. Then I said, can we have a meeting about anime? Wrong form, question mark. Then Orlando asked, what's your favorite anime? Osita says yes. Orlando says Philosophy Club 2016 to 21, RIP. Ava says whoop, and 4 heart eyes emoji with an exclamation mark at the end. Then Yusha replied to Orlando, I know it's super common, but I will either stick with Naruto or Dragon Ball Z, only because I grew up watching them and I recently rewatched them. Osita replied to Orlando, impossible question. Maybe Trigun, Dragon Ball Z, or Full Metal Alchemist, or Naruto. Orlando says, I like Dragon Ball Z, of course. One Piece is up there for me. You guys should check out Mob Psycho 100. We sure will. Then you should reply to Osita. Opinions on Full Metal Alchemist. I want to watch it, but unsure. Yusuf says, yes, he froze for us too. Osita says, One Piece is better as manga, I think. Then Ava says, after almost killing a kid, question mark, exclamation mark. Osita says, Osita replied to me, what did ops means? Now I replied to Osita.
Can I just say this? I've only ever seen one anime. It was Fooly Cooly. Is that a thing? That sounds right. Has anybody ever heard of that?
I'm fairly
No?
new to the
Yeah,
whole anime thing. Not new, I mean,
Heard of it?
I just don't watch it as much anymore.
That's a really weird anime for that to be the only one that you've ever seen, though. That's
Yeah, it was not what I was expecting, and I saw that like 12 years ago. It was interesting.
No wonder you grew up to be like this.
Yeah, I'm still growing up.
Okay, yeah, I guess we're done. Osita opts his opinion. Orlando says lol. George almost saving all of his loved ones, you mean?
Yeah, I'd like to say that my opinions on Star Wars are the best because I'm the biggest Star Wars nerd there is, and I'm going to prove it because I have a lightsaber. So I win.
You win and you kind of lose. But yeah.
What?
I'm impressed.
Okay, let's conclude this meeting. And yeah, if anyone wants, our channels are always open. Feel free to contact us. The officers for Philosophy Club also have officer hours, and the forum is either linked to the emails that you receive, or you can go check out our website. It's linked there. Feel free to touch base with us on anything. The officers, Professor Manzi, we're all available via Teams. And yeah, we thank you all for joining, staying with us for 2 straight hours, if not more. And we'll see you guys next week. Next week is also packed busy because we have the conference coming up, and before that we have the meeting, and we have some other events lined up as well.
May the Force be with you.
That's the wrong one. That's Star Trek.
And also with you.
That's not how you respond.
Take care, y'all. All right, Ferdy, cut the recording. Where is it?
I think he left actually.
Orlando, can you do it?
Yes.
Thank you.